Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Two Up, Two Down. Today, we are discussing the Millennium, a season 8 episode. So to start everything off, we're going to go over to Tony for your first one-up. What do you got today?
All right. Obviously, if you guys know us, it's going to be tough to find ups. So I'm happy to go first. My up in this is something I use quite often, actually. It's one of those kind of quotable lines. And it's the old Kramer in the year 2000. We'll all be on speed dial. You know, you just think of somebody and they'll be there. Like, oh, is that Newman? He does the whole thing with Jerry. I mean, we're basically there. It's 2023 and we finally got there. But I've always liked that Kramer look into the future with the everyone on speed dial line. So that's my up.
All right. Very good. Chris, what do you got for your first one up?
The Millennium. Here we go. My one up for the Millennium is when George is early in the episode talking about the Mets front office wanted to take him to lunch. Jerry's line right away is, no, seriously, why do you think they want to take you to lunch? I don't know. It got a laugh out of me every time. Obviously, they were looking for George to become head of scouting, and obviously Jerry was mocking that with his good friend. So that was my one up for the Millennium.
All right, very good. Tony, your second up for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, now it's getting hard. We basically gave out a couple. I got another one-liner. I mean, I'm going to let O'Hara probably take. I have a feeling where he's going with his up, so I'll see if he goes there. I'm going to leave that one open. My second thumbs up. Another Jerry line. It's just a simple Jerry line, but I love it when he comes back to was it Lauren Graham's apartment there. He's like, let me check my messages. Maybe a nicer girl called, he says under his breath. I love that line. He's already had enough with this chick, and he's just like, maybe a nicer girl called, as he checks his messages on the old speed dial phone. So that's my second and probably only other thumbs up of the episode.
Yeah, I like that line too. All right. Chris, your second up for this episode.
You guys are going to like this one. My final up for this episode is the closing credits, because this is a brutal episode, and I'm glad it ended. So closing credits are my second thumbs up for the Millennium.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for your two ups. So now we're going to shift over to the downs. And Tony, we'll go back to you. Your first down of this episode.
Okay. As O'Hara just alluded to, episode this bad, it's actually kind of almost hard to find downs. It's just like an all-encompassing down. So the ant, the whole parody of The Graduate, we get what you're doing here, right? This is all making me uncomfortable, Mrs. Well, you know, horrible Jerry storyline. So forced, so terrible. I mean, there's a lot of references in Seinfeld episodes, especially 8 and 9. Some of them I wouldn't even know unless I read an article about it. One of those things, all the references, right? They're usually a little bit more subtle. This is just driving home I mean, it's just a basic just bad, real bad. The ant, Jerry, the whole thing. I'll leave it at that as the thumbs down.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Chris, we'll go over to you. What do you got for your first down of many, probably?
Just to piggyback a little on that, the speed dial thing, I never understood it. He did the handsome cab ride. He took her out, that whole thing. And then when he looked over, he was number one. But
already,
had that happen. But we'll leave that as it is. I mean, a down for me, hard to ignore. This is one of the worst Elaine's imaginable. I mean, her going by the window, Cinco de Mayo, sales commission by bio. Change the channel. Okay. I mean, her going back and forth and then putting on the ridiculous outfit. I mean, this is as bad as it gets, Seinfeld fans. And, we talk about Elaine, and, this is just right there as the worst Elaine I've ever seen. And my second number two, we'll get into in a minute, but she dragged someone down with her. We'll get back to that in 1 second. But
all right,
Elaine,
Yeah, I was about to chime in, but so I'll wait till you're second down to chime in about the Elaine storyline. But so Tony, you're second down. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with O'Hara's first. I have it written down. Elaine's entire storyline was really my top of my notes, but I kind of wanted to give something else. I mean, I got so many here. I mean, lot we can go with here. He took Elaine's storyline. I'm actually going to take George's storyline. It's you know, I mean, everything aside, Jerry always says if it's funny, it's funny, right? So we could pick apart how ridiculous the premise is that George is getting scouted to be the head of scouting of Mets, right? Put that aside, right? I mean, just everything George is doing. I got to get fired. I mean, the whole Wilhelm stuff at the end where Wilhelm just comes in and kind of takes the job. It's a bad Costanza episode. And here's what I'll say, and I think O'Hara is probably going to agree. It sounds like this episode is bad, but George is not the worst part about it, which is scary because it's a bad George episode. But I still got to give a thumbs down just because it destroys me seeing George like this with the whole Babe Ruth uniform and the everything else. Why don't you just quit, George? Just quit. It's pretty simple, right? Like all of a sudden he's got to get fired and all this stuff. The whole thing. That's my thumbs down. They just ruined Costanza.
All right. And Chris, you're second down for this episode of Millennium.
It's funny. Those are great points. I hate this episode so much, but I don't even have George on my list.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the best of the worst almost, but I had to give him down.
And I've been very loyal and consistent to Kramer throughout these 9 years, but this is as bad as it gets for Kramer. Him gathering everyone gathering around, like, it started off bad with the balloons and they're all gathering around. It reminds me of that episode when they're in the closet. Like when they gather around, its force is terrible. Kramer's line when they're talking about barometer and he jumps in with its thermometer could be one of the worst lines in Seinfeld history. And then the yelling pneumania, like, I mean, he almost turns into Bad George in this episode. And then to top it off, I know the pink hat fans out there love Pennypacker. Doesn't fit here. You combine that with a brutal Elaine in the store. That scene at the end, unwatchable. Kramer, thumbs down.
Well, yeah. So I was going to say the Elaine storyline, where she's just so preoccupied with the two stores and getting revenge. It just seems so out of place for her character. And yeah, that's definitely one of my main downs. But just like you had it as a down, H.E. Pennypacker, I actually love that scene. I love that scene at the end when he comes in smoking a cigar and he's saying he wants to open a silver mine in Peru, and then trying to put the 99-cent tag on all those clothes. I still get a chuckle out of that. So for me, that is an up. In my opinion, but one of the rare ups in this episode. So
who's with you on thermometer?
I'm with you on thermometer 100%. Believe me, I'm with you on thermometer. We'll get there. No, I think it's good though. Schmidt brings another perspective to the show here, giving us his 2 cents on the Kramer scene.
And I'm a big Kramer guy, so so let's go to the grades for this episode. Tony, we'll head it back over to you. What's your final grade on the episode?
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback some of O'Hara's stuff there, like this episode seems like it was written by somebody who was like I hate to be that mean to this person who wrote this episode, but like a first grader who's like, what's a Seinfeld episode supposed to have? And like O'Hara said, like just crammed everybody in together, tried to bring all the stories together. Kramer, Pennypacker is always funny, like just forced everything you can think of that like supposed to be funny from a Seinfeld episode. And it became a pathetically just horrible episode, bottom of the barrel. All 4 characters at their worst. I mean, like O'Hara said, George is probably, bodysuit man. You want to chuckle at the high five? Okay, I'll give you that. But that's about where it ends. They destroy Kramer in this episode, as O'Hara mentioned. They destroy Elaine. I mean, it's got to be one of Elaine's worst, if not the worst. I mean, so many downs. I'm just seeing if I missed anything. I mean, there's a lot of 8 and 9s that we're tough on 8 and 9s, but this is below of just like, I mean, this is not one of the good ones. This is an F. I'm giving this an F straight up. The Millennium F is my grade.
All right. Holding nothing back there. Chris, I got to imagine you get a parallel Tony in his grade here, or we might even see even an F minus.
Yeah, unfortunately, F is the lowest grade you can give, and that's what this episode gets. I think Tony articulated that very well. I mean, when the best part of the episode is the stepmother and the Yankee announcer yelling, "There's a bold streaker," that's a problem. Okay, and again, George being so bad, and yet he was the cream of the crop of this. We know season 8 and 9 George, he ain't George Costanza. The Millennium is a resounding F.
All right. Well, there you go, viewers. F's all around for this episode, The Millennium. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode. So, guys, thank you so much. And let's see you next week on another episode of 2 Up, 2 Down.